Now, let's check. Now, oh no. Let's check. Okay, there is something wrong. Oh, yeah. Let's see whether now I. Aya, do you have a way to admit people to the call? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Let me try. I think I have to log in with
Yeah.
Okay, let me log out and log in with the other
Thanks.
like account. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I don't know
No.
why it doesn't work.
Okay, let's see.
Okay. Let's try again. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Let me give me just 30 seconds. Okay. Let me give me just 30 seconds. Okay. All right. I think we are set. Um, nice. Thank you all for being here. Today, in our seminar series, we have Oscar Hill. He's a PhD student at the University of Cambridge and co-supervised by Matteo Espinosa Zarlenga and Mattia Yamnit. And he's going to talk about hierarchical concept-based interpretable models. Thank you, Oscar, for being here, and please take it
away. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about our work on hierarchical concept-based interpretable models. And we presented this work at ICLR earlier this year. And it's kind of, the paper's kind of split in two. So there's the conference paper we presented, and there's also a workshop paper, which extends it to support sort of deeper hierarchies. So I'm mainly going to be talking about the version that supports deeper hierarchies today. But it's fairly similar to the ICLR paper as well. And I'll share links to both papers at the end. So I guess you probably already know that modern deep neural networks are very capable, but they're normally, they're often sort of black boxes, so they can't explain how they have made their decisions in terms that people can understand. And this makes it a lot harder to apply them in high-stakes settings such as medicine or law or finance, where we need to be able to justify the decisions that are being made. And you might have regulators or legal requirements to be able to explain why you have made decisions. And it also makes it harder to sort of to debug models and so detect issues like spurious correlations or biases that the model might have learned. And so I guess, yeah, because of all these reasons, we want to be able to, we want models that can explain their reasonings and justify their decisions, and allow us to inspect and work out why they have, how they're working and why they've made a decision that they have. And so concept bottleneck models attempt to address this problem by introducing a concept bottleneck between the input and the final prediction. And so the final prediction is a function of the concepts in the bottleneck. And the concept predictions in the bottleneck act as an explanation for the final prediction. And concept bottleneck models also allow human experts to correct mispredicted concepts at test time. And this can lead to the model updating its decision. And so you can it can interact with human users, and humans can be involved in the final decision made by the model. And so there are sort of two key limitations of concept bottleneck models that our work aims to address. So the first limitation is that they need concept annotations at training time. And so you need labels in your data set for every concept that's going to be in the bottleneck. And these can be expensive and very difficult to acquire. And another issue is that they don't take into account the fact that there can be relationships between concepts. So, for example, if you have an onion concept and a carrot concept, those are both vegetables, and that might be relevant to the downstream task. But the concept bottleneck just represents concepts as kind of a flat list. And so, yeah, those are the two issues that we have tried to address with our work. So our solution kind of consists of two parts. The first part we call multi-level concept splitting. And this is a way of sort of discovering concept hierarchies using only like coarse labels at the top level of the hierarchy. So for example, we might start with a label for a fruit concept, and then concept splitting would be able to automatically discover finer grained concepts like apple, banana, or orange. And so this enables the model to give you a more detailed and useful explanation without the need for more detailed concept labels. And with multi-level concept splitting, we evaluate discovering two levels of hierarchy. So, for example, we might start just with a fruit top-level concept, and then automatically discover an apple concept. And then, well, sort of a level deeper than apple, we might have red apple and green apple. So we can discover multiple levels of hierarchy. The second part of our contribution is a deep hierarchical concept embedding model. And this is a model that can use the concept hierarchies discovered with concept splitting to explain its predictions. And so it gives the more detailed explanations than the original model without requiring any additional labels. Okay. So before I explain sort of our methods in more detail, it helps if you understand how concept embedding models work. So concept embedding models are a variant of CBMs that achieve higher task accuracy. And they do this by representing the concepts using high dimensional vectors rather than just a single scalar activation. And so for every concept in the bottleneck, a concept embedding model learns to predict a positive and a negative embedding. And so I guess like intuitively, the positive embedding is meant to align with when the concept is present, and the negative embedding is when the concept is not present. And both the positive and the negative embedding are input to a scoring function, which outputs the probability that the concept is present. And so that probability kind of forms part of the explanation that the model is giving you. And the final concept embedding for a concept is a weighted mixture of the positive and the negative embedding, and it's weighted by the output of the scoring function, so by the predicted probability for that concept. And so sort of this is repeated for every concept, and then the final concept embeddings are concatenated into one to form the concept bottleneck, which is then passed through a label predictor to give the task prediction. And so like a concept bottleneck model, this gives you a prediction for every concept that you have labels for, which act as an explanation. And it also supports concept interventions, because, for example, if you decide that the top level concept is actually present in the image, even though the model is saying that it isn't, you can replace the final concept, so the concept embedding, with the positive embedding, and that again can lead the model to update its downstream task prediction. And so concept embedding models achieve higher task accuracies than concept bottleneck models because they can using the vectors to represent concepts allows more information to be encoded and transmitted through the concept bottleneck. However, they still suffer from the limitations you mentioned earlier, which is that they still need labels for all of the concepts. And they also don't consider relationships between concepts. So they still just sort of consider the concepts as a flat independent list. So the first part of our solution to this is multi-level concept splitting. And so this is a method that we start with some high-level concept labels, for example, has vegetables, has fruit, which we might have got labeled manually. We could, in one of our experiments, we grouped different classes together to obtain high-level concept labels, or you could potentially label your data set using a multimodal, like vision language model. But anyway, somehow you need to have some coarse high-level concepts labels to start with. And you train a concept embedding model using those concept labels. And once you've got a trained concept embedding model, you can extract the concept embeddings for the concepts that you have for all the examples in the training data set. And so that's what we do. And then we repeat steps B and C for every concept that we want to split. And so we can do that with every concept that we start with. And so for each concept, we take all of the concepts, we take the concept embeddings and we train a hierarchical sparse autoencoder on the concept embeddings. And so a sparse autoencoder it's an autoencoder that learns a large representation or a large set of features that can be used to reconstruct the concept embedding that was input to it. And it's sparse, so only a few of the features that it's learned will be active at any time. And our hierarchical SAE organizes the features across the multiple levels, which allows us to discover multiple levels of hierarchy. So, for example, we might have one feature that we find corresponds to a potato, and then for that feature we'll have like a corresponding subdictionary, and we find that the subdictionary is only used when the top level feature is active, and we find that the latents or the features in the subdictionary tend to correspond to sort of interpretable things that are related to the higher level feature. So if the top level feature is potato, we might end up with sweet potato, baked potato, and so on sub features. And so we train these hierarchical SAEs on the concept embeddings, and we can then create new concept labels using the features in the SAE. And so we do that just by, we can run the SAE on all of the examples in the training data set, and we can then label an example as having a concept if the corresponding feature is active on that example. And so we take the concept embeddings for the concept we're interested in splitting. We train a hierarchical SAE on the concept embeddings, and then we create discover concept labels from the features in the SAE. And once we've done this and we have our new concept labels, we can train a deep hierarchical concept embedding model using the discover concept labels. And so this is a model that kind of explicitly models the relationships between the concepts. And so like a concepts embedding model, it predicts all the concepts, and the concept predictions act as an explanation, and it supports interventions. But because this is sort of taking into account the structure of the concepts, if you intervene to say, for example, that there are no vegetables in the image, it realizes this means there's no fruits, sorry. So if you say there are no vegetables, it realizes there's no onions, there's no carrots, and so on. And so it kind of it represents the relationships between the concepts in the hierarchy, and we find that sort of representing the hierarchy in this way leads to better performance when we intervene on concepts compared to just having the flat list of concepts in a regular SEM. So yeah. So to evaluate our multi-level concept splitting and the deep hierarchical concept embedding models, we looked at sort of 3 research questions. So first of all, we wanted to find out whether the concepts discovered with multi-level concept splitting make sense to people, because it's no good having an explanation using concepts that don't correspond to things that people understand, or that sort of mix different concepts together. And so we evaluated this using a concept bank which contained held out human understandable concepts that weren't provided to the model during training time or during the concept discovery process, but that we anticipated might be discovered. And so after we discovered the concepts, we matched them against sort of the held out concepts in the concept bank, and that allowed us to measure the accuracy of the deep hierarchical SEM when it was predicting the discovered concepts, because we had ground truth labels on the test data set that we hadn't that the model hadn't seen. And we also evaluated the interpretability of the discovered concepts using a user study. And the user study we ran on the version of the work that was submitted to iClear. So this is a version that only supports 1 level of hierarchy, but it was fairly similar, and I'll show you the results. The second research question was how the task accuracies of the deep hierarchical of our models compare to baselines. And so we show that the task accuracies after you've done concept splitting and trained the hierarchical model are competitive with other baselines, and so you get more fine-grained, detailed explanations without sacrificing task accuracy. And finally, we looked at whether task accuracy can be improved by intervening on the concepts we've discovered. And to do that, we just measure the task accuracy as we intervene on discovered concepts. So that's at test time as incorrect concept predictions are corrected. And so to help our evaluation, we introduced a data set which we called pseudo kitchens, which is a synthetic data set of 3D rendered kitchen scenes that was automatically generated. And so the task in this data set is to predict the recipe that's being shown. And so each image, each instance in the data set depicts a kitchen with various ingredients sort of laid out on the countertop. And then it will be labeled with a recipe that can be made using the ingredients that are shown in the image. And so in this setup, the ingredients can naturally correspond to concepts. And then the final task is to try and predict the recipe that's being made in the kitchen shown in the image. And there's a few advantages of sort of generating a synthetic data set in this way, is that it's very easy to get perfect ground truth concept labels, because we know we generated the data set, and so we know which ingredients are shown in the image. And although we didn't use these, each image is also, we know exactly which pixels in the image cover a particular concept. And so, for example, if a particular ingredient is out of the shot or it's hidden by another one, we don't label it as being present in that image. And this could be used by methods that sort of try and localize concepts, although that's not part of our research. So we use this data set as one of the this is one of the data sets that we use to evaluate the concept splitting and the hierarchical concept embedding models. Okay, I'll just see if I can get rid of this. There we are. Okay, so our first question was whether the concepts discovered with multi-level concept splitting sort of made sense to people. And we found that on the whole they did. And so this shows the results of the concept bank evaluation that I described earlier. So this is the discovered concepts were automatically matched to held out concepts, and then we could evaluate the accuracy of the discovered concepts using the labels we have for the held out concepts. And we used 5 data sets, so MNIST, add, which just shows 2 handwritten digits. The concepts correspond to what the digits are, and the label is the sum of the digits. Shapes digit, the shapes task dataset is another synthetic dataset which just has some shapes, and the concepts correspond. So the images kind of show shapes. The concepts correspond to the shape, the color, and I think and the location in the image, and then the label is just generated as a function of those sort of concepts. Cub is a data set of birds, and animals with attributes just is a data set of different animal species. So as you can see, the discovered concepts match closely with the held out concepts in our concept bank, and the prediction accuracy, the accuracy of the hierarchical of the highest term when it's predicting the discovered concepts is high. And as a baseline, we had another concept discovery method called label-free CBMs, which achieve lower accuracy than our method, and also was unable to discover concepts in the MNIST and the pseudo kitchens task. The other way that we measured the interpretability, or we tried to evaluate the interpretability of the discovered concepts, was with our user study. And so, as I mentioned, this was done in the iClear paper, which only looked at discovering a single level of hierarchy. But the first kind of question we asked was trying to evaluate whether the sub-concepts we discovered were sort of related to the parent concept, because that's kind of, because we're hoping that when we split like a fruit concept, the sub-concepts we discover do actually relate to fruit. And so we showed users a questions which had this form. So is the sub-concept name an example of the parent concept name? And they could say yes, no, or that they're the same thing. And so in the control group, we randomly selected concept names from the dictionary that we used to name concepts. And so the user study we did on the ImageNet dataset, and we automatically named the discovered subconcepts using the clip vision language model. And so in the control group, the subconcept name was a random word from the dictionary we used to name concepts, and the parent concept name was just one of the randomly selected parent concepts in the ImageNet from the task, and we formed the parent concepts by grouping together classes in ImageNet. And then in the experimental group, the subconcept names corresponded to concepts discovered with our method that were named using the vision language model. And the users were far more likely to say that the subconcept was related to the parent concept in the experimental group, where the subconcept was one that was discovered by our method. The second kind of question in the user study was trying to evaluate how accurate the names and the concept labels were. And so we just showed the users an image from the dataset, and we asked whether it showed the subconcepts that our method predicted was in that image. Again, so in the control group, it was a randomly selected image and a randomly selected subconcept. And in the experimental group, it was an image that that our method had labelled as having the subconcept. And again, users in the experimental group were much more likely to say that the image contained the subconcept. And for the user study, our method of naming the discovered subconcepts using a vision language model was fairly crude. So it could be improved upon, for example, by manually assigning interpretations to discovered concepts, which would still be less work than because you would just have to decide what one of the discovered subconcepts, what its interpretation was, rather than labeling every single image in the data set. Okay. So our second research question was on whether the deep high sums have competitive task and provided concept accuracies. And we found that they did. So consistently, they had task accuracies that are competitive with our baselines, particularly with the regular concept embedding model, which is sort of what we had before running our method. But our method can provide more detailed explanations because it's using all the concepts in the initial concept embedding model, as well as all of the discovered subconcepts. And so you're getting more detailed explanations without sacrificing task accuracy. And again, when it's predicting the provided concepts, it does this just as well as the concept bottleneck model or the concept embedding model that we started with. And then the final thing we looked at in the evaluation was whether task accuracy could be improved by intervening on the discovered concept. And we found that a lot of the time it could, although there are a few exceptions where interventions can make the task accuracy worse or they don't have any effect. And so we think that would be interesting to look at. And this actually wasn't the case in when we were only discovering one level of hierarchy. So we found that in the original paper where we were discovering one level of hierarchy, interventions mostly did increase the task accuracy. But when we extended and looked at discovering deeper levels, we found that the intervention performance got worse. And so, yeah, so this compares it to the method that just discovers one level of hierarchy. Yeah, so in terms of future work, as I just mentioned, the interventions on the discovered concepts aren't always beneficial. And so it might be interesting to look into why that is and how that could be solved. Generally, sparse SIEs aren't guaranteed to discover meaningful concepts. And our methods, I guess with concept splitting, you're not limited to using SIEs. And so in the original paper, we also looked at using clustering to discover concepts and compared the SIE method with that. And you could basically use whatever method you like to try and look for concepts in the concept embeddings. But I think that so we found SIEs work best, but they don't come with any guarantees. So we also just looked at sort of subconcept relationships. And so it might be interesting to look at trying to model other kind of relationships between concepts and concept-based methods. And also we've kind of assumed that a more detailed explanation is beneficial to users. But it would be interesting to verify that, or to make sure, to verify that the more detailed and hierarchical concepts do actually benefit users when they're trying to understand what the model is doing. So yes, there are links to the papers and the code here. And thank you for listening. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for a great presentation. Now if you're okay, we can have a round of questions. Does anyone have questions for Oscar? All right, Giovanni.
Hi, Oscar. Thank you very much. Nice meeting you again. Sorry, I arrived just a little bit late, so I'm not sure if you have mentioned this at the very beginning, but have you looked into ontologies or potential to use this for ontology-based concept spaces?
So I guess we haven't. So I guess with ontologies, you already have like concepts organized into a hierarchy.
Exactly.
And so we were kind of looking at unsupervised concept discovery, so just starting with the top level label and then discovering the subconcepts. But I think the ontology part could probably be applied to the deep HiSem sort of part of our work. So if you have labels that sort of organized in an ontology, or you could even use a vision language model or something to get labels. If you just have concept names in an ontology, then you could probably train a hierarchical SEM using that structure.
And can you discover ontologies, or can you complete maybe partial ontologies too?
So I guess it depends kind of what. So if you have like a top level in the ontology with labels that you can sort of train a concept embedding model with, and that you could then apply our method to discover the more fine-grained concepts. And so in that way, you could probably learn, you could maybe learn relevant concepts that you could add to the ontology. But yeah, we didn't specifically look at that.
Yeah, I will let some others go into the question and maybe go in later. Thank you.
Aya, you're muted.
Aya, you're muted.
Sorry. Very cool work. I wanted to make sure I understand. So you take the concept embedding, you basically use an SAE to predict the fine-grained concepts from that, correct? That's my high level understanding. So my question is like how much better does this do from like if we didn't have a concept embedding altogether, if we did it from the original embedding, the dense network? Did you look into that?
Yeah, we did. So I guess the main benefit of training the SAE on the concept embeddings rather than sort of just a latent representation of the image is that it lets you kind of discover like these structured concepts that are related to the parent concept. And so we found that when we trained an SAE on a concept embedding, the features in the SAE tended to correspond to concepts that were semantically related to the parent concept. And so we kind of learn these subconcepts that are sort of more fine-grained or instances of the parent concept.
Okay. So basically what you found is like you probably won't find these fine-grained concepts had you trained an SAE from scratch.
So I guess you might sort of find the same concepts, but you wouldn't know. You would kind of just get a flat list of all of the features for all of the concepts, and probably some extra stuff as well. And so sort of doing it in this way allows you kind of know that the discovered subconcept is likely related to the parent concept. And so instead of so if you have like a fruit concept and a vegetable concept initially, if you trained and say you discovered like apple, banana, onion, carrot, if you do it, we did it on the concept embeddings and found that say apple and banana would be found in the fruit concept embedding and onion and carrot would be found in the vegetable one. And so then in our model, we can say that sort of apple and banana are examples of fruit, and we kind of group them together. And the same with vegetables and onion and carrot. And if you just did it on a latent representation of the image, then you wouldn't kind of get those relationships.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other question? Otherwise, I might have one. So, um, when you said that the labels for the fine-grained concepts um, should come from a bank, or like should come, you mean like that these labels mm, like are outsourced from the model, right? They are not part um, of the discovering process. They are externally generated and then used in the model, right?
Yeah. So the concept bank was just used for evaluation.
Oh, okay.
So it's not kind of part of the method. So in the method, like the concept splitting part discovers the fine-grained concepts, and we create concept labels from the SAE features.
Okay, so
and we then use those labels to train the hierarchical model.
so when you see that one hidden dimension of the SAE fires, how do you associate like a label to that specific activation?
So we used batch top K SAEs, and so I think across the batch the top K latents are labeled as active. And so in that way we kind of get a binary for each image and each feature. We get a binary on-off label using the batch top K mechanism.
But then how do you attach like a string, like potatoes or apples to that batch?
And so you're talking about like assigning a human understandable interpretation.
Yeah.
So in our user study on ImageNet, we used a vision language model to name them.
I see. Post-hoc?
In the rest of
Post-hoc, like for the network is the same, but let's say in a post-hoc fashion.
Yes, this is after we've created the concept labels. Rename them. I guess another approach would be to get a human expert to do it manually. But yeah, I guess we kind of leave it open as to how you assign interpretations. But for the user study, we do it with a vision language model.
Do you have a connected question, Aya?
Yes, I do. I wanted to ask, like, did you find anything kind of like interesting? Like one of the discovering concepts was like, wow, we didn't expect this, or anything surprising?
I guess with the vision language model, we kind of just took a random sample of the discovered concepts, and so some of them, like, I guess, were surprising or didn't seem related to the parent concept. But I guess like the most surprising thing was actually that it does seem that information that's sort of semantically related to a concept is flowing through that concept's embedding.
But that's what the model designed, right? Like it would be surprising if it wasn't the case.
I guess not. Yeah, I guess it is kind of intuitive, but it is quite nice that it does actually work that way. And yeah, so I guess then when we were automatically in the user study, we did find that obviously some of the features weren't as interpretable or didn't correspond to things that seemed related to the parent concept.
So do you think this might be because of like some sort of leakage, or maybe like we should design concept bottleneck models in a different way so we don't get like these, I guess, concepts that fire up that are not related to that? Like, can we use this maybe as a tool of designing better architectures in a sense?
Possibly. I guess our method does kind of exploits leakage because the sub-concepts are different to the parent concepts, and we're sort of discovering them by training an SAE on the parent concepts embeddings. So we're kind of discovering what information is being leaked, and then reintroducing that explicitly.
I have a question for the SAEs. When you said about the interventions, you're doing the interventions on like the SAE dimension, right? If you're doing like fine-grained instruction, you're doing it on the SAEs.
So we use the SAEs to create concept labels, and but then we train the hierarchical model using the concept labels from the SAEs.
Okay, so you train the CEM regular, basically, after that.
Yeah. So yeah, we train the hierarchical CEM using labels from the SAEs, and then we basically throw the SAEs away, so they're not used. They're not used in this architecture.
Okay, and that's what you were intervening on. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, like on my screen I have Kaushik. Sorry if I mispronounce it.
Yeah.
Katarina and then Giovanni.
Yeah, I was wondering if you tried using steering vectors to like intervene instead of like retraining a model from scratch and then intervening on that.
Yeah. So I guess we didn't try that. I guess the advantage of having the concept set explicitly is we get predictions, and we can intervene. But no, we didn't try. Yeah, I guess you could sort of try steering the concept embeddings in the original model.
Because yeah, like I thought one of the problems with this deep hierarchical CEMs was that you had to like retrain the whole model from scratch after concept discovery.
So it's not actually that computationally expensive because the backbone you can keep the backbone the same, and the only bit you need to sort of retrain are the concept embedding generators, which is just a few linear layers. And so the retraining it isn't too bad.
So if we like discover new concepts, we can like freeze the other modules and then just train.
We kind of have to retrain the whole concepts module, but we can freeze the backbone,
Okay.
which is the majority of the parameters.
All right. Thank you.
Giovanni, do you have your hand up?
Is it me? Is it my turn? Yes. Okay. No, it's related to what you were discussing before with Pietro and Eya. You mentioned some of the interventions weren't effective, right? Sometimes you observe some drops. I was wondering if you had inspected those, both the drops or the like accuracy not increasing very much, and if that was related to concepts that were kind of unrelated, so they were the ones that you were referring before, or is it, so is the concept wrong, or is leakage going somewhere else, happening somewhere else in the architecture?
So when we looked at like the concept accuracy of the concepts where interventions were not effective, which we measure like using the held out labels in the concept bank, the concepts where the interventions didn't work didn't correspond to like low accuracy ones, and so they did seem to correspond fairly closely with the with like the interpretation we assigned them. Although we did have one experiment where we trained the hierarchical model with perfect concept labels, and so those are the one they were just basically the concepts in the concept bank, which we didn't provide to the model when we were doing the concept discovery, but we can just train a hierarchical sum with those labels, and we found that the interventions worked in that case, and so it's due to sort of the not ideal quality of the label of the features in the SIE, but just by looking at you can't kind of predict which concepts are going to perform badly when you intervene by looking at by looking at like the concept accuracy or how closely they aligned with the concepts in the concept bank, which is maybe a bit surprising.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the very interesting and very clearly explained talk. I have a question about the held out concept set. So the held out concept in that set, were they the high level concepts or were they on like a sub concept level?
They were just at a sub-concept level, and so we assume that we have the high level, or we provide the high level concept labels to the method when we do the concept splitting and the discovery, and we don't provide the sub-concept labels, and they're the ones that we match afterwards.
Okay, and now comes my actual question. How can you be sure that this is the optimal sub-concept that you can discover? Maybe your concept discovery finds a concept that is more suitable for the given data set?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. And so I guess when we were doing this matching and sort of measuring the concept accuracies, if a SAE feature didn't match well with any of the concepts in the bank, we just discarded it. And so it might be that corresponded to something interpretable that wasn't in our bank, but we didn't, but we didn't kind of investigate that. We just found we just used the ones that did match what we anticipated might be discovered.
Okay, and the third leg of my question, if I may, how did you do this matching of discovered concept and held out concepts?
I think we calculated the WCOG, or the area under the curve score between the SAE features and the concept labels in the concept bank.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question on the slide if we have time. So basically from this slide, what you do is after you have like the labels, you train a new concept like embedding model on top of the embeddings, right? For the hierarchical. That's what and it's a single level. So the hierarchy is one level.
And so it has more than one level, and so sort of the red dotted boxes here are like nested concepts modules. So we essentially repeat everything inside the purple box in the red box.
Okay. And how many times? Like how deep do you decide? And every time, is it like, do you do it by SAEs? So for example, okay, the original concept was vegetables, and then we trained an SAE and we got a potato, and then we trained that and we got like sweet potato or something, like different types of potatoes, and then that's kind of like how you did it.
So in our evaluation, for most of the data sets, we just looked at one level because we didn't have labels corresponding to deeper levels. For the pseudo kitchens data set, we could construct it so we had two levels of kind of hidden concepts to discover. And so in that case, when we in the SAE, in that case we used two levels of hierarchy. And I guess in all the cases, in all the data sets, we trained a hierarchical SAE, which with kind of two levels, so with the top level features and the sub-dictionary for every feature. And so in the data sets where we didn't have labels for the second level, we kind of just ignored the second level. And in the pseudo kitchens data sets, we looked at matching that level and included it in our evaluation.
Okay. So yeah. So, but okay. Once we decide on the levels, we train a CEM exactly like you would train a standard CEM. But like the input would be the embedding, right? Like the nested CM, I'm saying the smaller one, the concept module.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So once we have the labels, we train like the hierarchical CM, which has the nested concepts modules, which I guess in theory could go as deep as you like. Although in our evaluation, we only looked at having up to I guess 3 levels of hierarchy. So we had the top level concepts that we started with, and then 2 discovered levels.
Okay. So basically the concept module on the right is exactly the same architecture as the big box in the middle, in a sense.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Related question. So, in a sense, what mm, it looks like you're doing is um, you take the information you have in the embedding of a concept, and then you mm, unpack this information into more fine-grained concepts. I would expect, like, if you're saying that at some point you find a fine-grained concept that you cannot unpack, or like where the embedding doesn't really have a structure, like you don't see any clustering or specific cluster, like you may have just two clusters, active or not active, like all the rest, like all the other information collapses in just uh, active or not active. It means that at this low level, I guess the embedding doesn't really hold any relevant, any useful information, right? So it could be just collapsed into um, a, a like almost a Boolean variable, active or not active. But this suggests, like, if you're doing this for all concepts, so if you create a hierarchy and you generate like fine-grained concepts that cannot be further split, then you kind of you may not need embeddings any longer, right? Like all the information is already living in Boolean variables, like in a sort of like standard CBM kind of variable, even if it's structured in a hierarchical way. But in the end, I I'm wondering whether you could rewrite a deep hierarchical CM into a deep hierarchical CBM where you don't have embeddings at all. Like you have the structure, you have all the fine-grained concepts, but you don't need embeddings.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I think in our evaluation, we probably didn't go deep enough to do that, as in we only looked at like up to 2 levels. And I guess another problem might be if, so maybe your course level concepts at the start weren't exhaustive enough, and there's information not related to any of the kind of top level concepts that's needed for the final task. And in that case, maybe that's still getting past the embeddings. And I guess if you kind of keep running the splitting process, some of the concepts in your hierarchy will kind of maybe they'll just be semantically like out of place, and they'll kind of encode that extra information. And so maybe you could still use like scalar or like Boolean activations instead of embeddings. Yeah, but this isn't something that we've looked at.
But I guess I agree. Like if the concepts are not complete, they would encode information about the task. But this means that when you're going to split a concept, you will find information that is not related to that is not a fine-grained concepts of the father concept, of the parent concept, but it's actually information related, just relevant to the task. So there might be a sort of like information criterion to assign like a sub concept to a parent concept or to the task. Like in a so you might be able to use this kind of process to at least disentangle the kind of leakage that you have, or like identify leakage that is due to the task, or like if we want to call it leakage, like information that is related to fine-grained concepts. Just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be interesting to look at. But I guess you might need to go like deeper than we did in our experiments.
Yeah, but at least in the synthetic experiment where where you can control everything, like in the kitchen scene experiment.
Yeah, in the pseudo kitchens. Yeah, I guess in that case we would know that all the information you need for the task is actually encoded in the concepts. And so yeah, we could look at replacing the embeddings with scalar activations or booleans there. So yeah, I think that would be interesting.
Okay. Any other question from the audience? All right. Then, yeah. Thanks again, Oscar, for your time and presentation and for being here for all these questions. And see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.